Well, another day, another project on the camper, and today I'm going to start tackling some of the decal graphics on this thing. This camper is about 5 years old, and the decals are actually in not too bad a shape. They're getting a little ratty around the edges, a little bit of dirt getting in underneath, and I've tried a little cleaning. So my plan is to use this heat gun. I just picked this up at Harbor Freight. Was needing to get one of these anyway for wiring projects. Luckily here at the storage place we've got power, and then for residue I'm gonna give this Goo Gun stuff a shot. So we have all four sides. We've got the name, a couple of different decals here. The Northern Lite across the front is actually not in that great a shape. Looks okay from 10 feet away, but the clear layer on the top is getting really ratty, and some of the edges are starting to peel up, and it's starting to crack. Fingers crossed, these are still in decent enough shape. They can be peeled off for the most part, and with maybe a little bit of heat and just removing the adhesive, whatever little bits left. Starting off kind of slow. I've got it on low speed, and it says 650 degrees in the low speed setting. It is about 80 degrees outside, probably in the low mid 70s in here right now. So it feels a little cooler than the touch, but not bad. All right. Well, it's peeling off real nice. I think actually, turn this off. It got soft really quick. It actually was to the point where I started to pull it, and I was just pulling the decal apart. So I stopped with the heat, and it seemed to be going okay. Let's give this a shot. And I don't see any residue, maybe just a little along the edge here and where the dirt is. All right, well, it's starting to peel a little bit away. Still not bad though. Uh-oh. That was interesting. So there's like this adhesive backer here behind the white. If I pull it too much at an angle, I'm leaving that behind. If I pull closer to 90 degrees, seems to do a little better. As long as it'll keep coming off like this, I'll keep pulling. Well, or not. Try this again. Maybe there's a good, see, as soon as that gets just the least bit warm, you got it on almost the lowest setting. Let me put this on the lowest temperature setting. See if I can, this stuff, as soon as it gets the least bit warm, just loses all its strength, and you can't even pull on it. Yeah, pulling at 90 degrees is the best option here. After all that work, all the main decals off, what's left is this gray adhesive label. And if you look at the back of this, some of this decal stuff here, you can see there's like a clear layer, then probably the printed layer, then this gray layer on the back. that is an adhesive. I was able to get most of that off just by peeling at a right angle. If I started to get too ahead of myself, this would get left behind. Even with that technique, there's still some areas where it didn't want to come off. You know, it looks like it should scrape off, but it doesn't want to. There's a little bit up underneath this trim piece as well. So I'm using this Goo spray gel. It seemed like the gel is a good thing to get. Since this is a horizontal or vertical surface rather, I keep it from running quite so much. And let's see, the instructions say, you know, apply it, allow a few minutes for it to begin working, and then wipe with a clean white cloth. It's got a citrusy smell, so it must be one of these citrus-based cleaners. So we'll see how it works. All right, it has been about 3 minutes now. And while I was waiting, I did read the label on this. Probably should have done that before I started. But it says that it's made from petroleum distillates and D-limonene. So yeah, it looks like it's a citrus-based product. And the warnings on here mention don't swallow it. Could be fatal if swallowed, but there's no inhalation warnings on here, so that's awesome. Of course, if it doesn't work, all that's for naught. So let's see how this goes here. So I'm just using a standard shop rag. Yeah, it's coming off pretty good. Taking a little bit of rubbing. Yeah, even these thick areas, they're breaking up. Might get up in here with the scraper a little bit. I'll come back in a minute. Putting a little scraping action behind with my nails and behind this rag, but really the solvent or this cleaner is doing most of the work, so I'm pretty happy. So this section is all done now, and I was pretty impressed with that solvent. All in all, this job has gone pretty smoothly, smoother than I had expected. I think it was a little tougher to get off around the edges of the decal, probably because the adhesive had dried out. If it's a good, still pliable adhesive, it takes it off pretty quick. It still takes it off if it's dry, but it might take an extra round with it to clean that up. So yeah, with that in mind, I am going to continue on. When you're pulling this stuff away, the heat does help, but it's really more of a finesse. So what I've been doing now is I'll take the heat and the heat gun, apply a little bit of heat. I've got it on its lowest setting, which is 400 and something degrees. Just sort of wave it around a little bit, just enough to get it nice and warm. Think of being in the sun on maybe an 80 or 90 degree day where it gets nice and warm to the touch up here, and then I'll pull a little bit on it. If I start to pull and it's a little too soft, I just wait a few seconds, cools off a bit, and I keep pulling. When it gets a little bit harder to pull, then I come in and finesse a little bit more of that heat on there. It's not always needed that way, but I found in some areas, especially when the decal gets really wide in here and it gets harder to pull on and wants to break more, that really helps. Side is done, and yeah, I'm liking it already. Things came off pretty well. The challenge is definitely the dry edges. The solvent does a pretty good job, but it definitely still takes some scrubbing. Unfortunately, the area up on the nose here turned out to be harder than the rest of it. I think it just got more UV, so if I tried to peel it away, it would just break apart. I think that's more typical of what you see when you're removing old decals. Tried to heat it up, but the heat, basically it's either too stiff and it flakes and breaks, or it's too hot and it just melts and breaks. So this is not going to be able to be just peeled up like the rest. I think the plan here will be to go online and get some of the plastic razor blade scrapers. And I think the plan here is just going to be heating this stuff up and scraping it, working my way across here. That's about the only way it's going to come off. Hey everybody, seems like I left you just a minute ago, but it's actually been about a week. So after finishing up everything last week, with a couple of exceptions of things on the back and this decal on the front, I went to Amazon and purchased these plastic scrapers. Didn't know these things existed before, but a little Googling around recommended this as a potential product. It has a replaceable blade, so if I do melt these, I'm kind of thinking I might, I can replace the blade. I think it came with like 100 blades, and in fact they're actually double-sided too. So I just finished up one letter here. I got the letter N done, and as you can probably see, it left behind a lot of adhesive. So on the plus side, it scraped pretty well. I did have to bump up the fan speed to high. I bumped it up a couple of notches, which is about 730 degrees. So when I was peeling them off, I was on low speed and 430 degrees, and that worked pretty well. Here I need to get it warmer so that it really softens up more so I can peel it. Whereas before, getting it soft was causing problems with the tearing. Pretty well, really. I'm getting the technique now, kind of figuring out how much heat I can put on or how much heat it needs. And I'm working in an area, maybe 4 or 5 square inches. Heat that area up, maybe a little bigger than that, scrape it along, and you get to the edge. You can feel where it's colder, it gets brittle, stops, heat up again, and continue on. So I did forget to mention these plastic scrapers working out pretty well. The edge has been holding up just fine. I do notice it's getting a little worn out on the corners, probably getting a little too hot, but I'm gonna go ahead and flip that thing around and use the other edge. And if I can get a letter or two out of each edge of each razor, that'll be great. But I've been pretty happy with how this thing's performed. In the meantime, let's go ahead and spray some of this adhesive remover on there. Works better if you turn it on. And give that a chance to do its thing. Maybe put a little bit heavier than I was doing before, just because there's more adhesive here. And definitely more challenging than it was before. I feel like this is going to take a few applications. Okay, well that's interesting. So now that I've sprayed some of that cleaner on here, it is scraping pretty nice. Leave a little bit of a residue, but compared to trying to scrub it off, that is a nice technique. And I'm very happy with that, because it was going to be no fun trying to rub all of this stuff off with the rag. I can feel that. More heat is probably better. So I bumped up the temperature a couple times, once about halfway through, and definitely noticed an improvement. Let's see here, I bumped it up to I think 790, about 730, 790. And that seemed to make things go a little bit smoother, made things scrape a little easier. So as I felt comfortable with that, saw that I wasn't doing any damage to the gel coat, I then bumped it up to almost the highest setting, just one shy of the highest setting, which on here is 970 degrees Fahrenheit. And one thing I will say about the higher temperatures is that safety becomes a bigger concern. It's much hotter on your hands up there. I would recommend using a leather glove. It doesn't have to be something like a heavy duty welding glove or anything, but even like a maybe a gardening glove. It's something leather, something that's really non-flammable, can protect your hands a little bit better. I'm excited to have that done. All in all, it wasn't too bad. If you're doing this outside, you might want to lay down a tarp or something underneath you to catch all this mess. Lots of little pieces here, lots of those razor blades. Don't be afraid to just burn through those plastic scraper blades. Hesitate to call them razor blades, they're not that sharp, but boy, when I was taking that adhesive off of there, I could sometimes get 4 or 5 good scrapes and it would start to dull, and I'd have to replace it. Sometimes it was only 1 or 2. So that's why you see so many of those little orange blades on the ground. Appreciate you joining me. Look forward to seeing you again. I've got some more projects to work on, and we get this thing ready for camping and exploring this summer. Take care, everybody.